Hey everyone, Vincenzo Calla here with VCalla Productions. Today I'm sitting here with John Aldag, who is the Member of Parliament for Cloverdale, Langley City. Thanks, John, for your time, and welcome to Let's Discuss Politics.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's so great to have you here, and let's get right into this interview. So our first segment is called John's Story, where we'll talk a bit about who John is and his political history. So first off, can you tell me a bit about yourself, your story, and how you got your start in politics?
Absolutely. Well, prior to politics, I had a career with Parks Canada. I ended up working for Parks Canada for almost 34 years. And frankly, I'd never wanted to be a politician. I was happy being in the federal public service and serving the politicians. And then at one point in my career, I was the acting superintendent at Pacific Rim National Park Reserve in the west coast of Vancouver Island. It was a fantastic job, best location to be posted, beautiful national park with lots of challenging issues. And in 2012, when I was there, we had the under the Harper Conservatives, the Deficit Reduction Action Plan, or draft. And through that initiative, I had to lay off all my scientists. The Harper government was really going hard after the science program in the federal government. And so I went home to my wife at that point. If I had continued working with Parks, I would have had 7 years left in my career and was looking forward to retiring at 55. And I went home to my wife and I said, I don't think I can continue working under this government for 7 more years. Being the wise woman that she is, she simply said to me, do something about it or shut up because I'm not going to listen to you complain about this for 7 years. And so that was sort of my political awakening. I thought, okay, where do I stand on issues? What does do something about it look like? And I had some meetings, talked to some people, and I was really excited where Justin Trudeau was at and his vision for a new Liberal Party. And so I went and started asking people if I could perhaps be a part of a campaign, maybe do some door knocking, make some phone calls. And after a few months of that, having conversations, because in the area that I was in, there had never been a Liberal elected. It was always Conservative. People started saying, hey, you seem serious about this. Why don't you do it? And so I went home to my wife and I said, hey, I have this crazy idea. Maybe doing something about it looks like me entering politics. And she supported me. And that was really my story on how I got involved in politics.
So let's talk a bit about that now. So I want to ask you, why did you decide to run for the position you hold? Why did you decide ultimately to run in 2015? And we'll talk a bit about 2019 and 2021 after that. But let's start with 2015.
Sure. Yeah. 2015 was a much brighter period than 2019. So that's a good place to start for me. For me, it was really about this new vision for the Liberal Party. It was about building a Canada that I really believed in. I thought we needed a different change than what the previous government had given. I hadn't really paid attention to it, and all of a sudden, when I had this my kind of waking up moment, I thought, there was talk under the previous government about barbaric cultural practices and there were hotlines for this, that, and the other, the old stock Canadian values. And I just thought, this is not representative of the country I live in. And so that really is what locked me into the Liberal Party. I think like many people over my life when I was in university, I had been an NDP member. At one point, I was a Conservative Party member. I had joined the Greens at one point. But in 2015, I was really, really excited about the Liberal vision and remain really excited about the Liberal vision under the current Prime Minister. And so that was what I wanted to be part of. It was like, how do we actually reflect the values of a diverse Canada? With my parks background, when I was elected, I was able to serve on the Environment and Sustainable Development Committee. So that was very much in line with what I had done as a career, and was able to help do things like see more funds go to Parks Canada for the expansion of the national parks and national marine conservation areas. We did a study on national historic sites, and there's legislation that's now finally hitting the House on that under Bill C-23. Things like reconciliation with Indigenous peoples in Canada was important to me. And we had a really strong vision for reconciliation. So all of the pieces came together, and that's really why I went hard with the Liberals in 2015 and continue to do so.
So in 2019, you lost in that riding by a
I
very
did.
slim margin.
Yeah, I
And
did.
in 2021, you came back and you won again. And obviously, you did something. I mean, you're here and you won. So you're here sitting as the MP. So why did you decide in 2021 that you were going to have another go at it and come back and try to win the riding again that you had lost by just under 1,500 votes last time?
Yeah, well, it was a little bit more than that, but it was still, a winnable margin. I actually announced on the night of the results in 2019 that I was running again. I very much felt that, that the person who had defeated me was hiding her values and what she really stood for, and I thought people would wake up to it. And it didn't take long for the mask to come off, and I think that there was a different kind of representation. There was a sort of a classic debate related to LGBTQ rights, and she likened the community to being dirty or unclean. And Rob Oliphant had an excellent comeback, and it just really made me think we need to do better in Cloverdale, Langley City, and being inclusive and progressive. And so in the last in 2019, I said I was going to run again whenever the chance came, and so I kept engaging with my community. I door knocked, I fundraised, and just really, I've always enjoyed the conversations on the doorsteps. And so I thought, I'll give people a choice. They had seen me in office, they had seen the person who defeated me in office. And I thought we'll give them a choice to decide who they want to see represent them again. Fortunately, the election was called, in 2 years as opposed to four. Not a lot of seats changed, and some people have criticized that, but for me, it changed in my favor, and I was back in 2021. And so that was, a bit on the dark period and the reasons for wanting to come back to office and to serve my constituents again in 2021.
So let's talk about that now. Let's talk about the way you've been serving your constituents over the past few years and from 2015 as well. So I want to talk about it in the segment called Serving as an Elected Official. So first off, what is your favorite part about serving Cloverdale Langley City as their MP?
Well, my favorite part of being in office is door knocking. I absolutely love going out and surprising people at the door, not in a completely, but people are often surprised when I show up at the door and it's like, "Hi, I'm your member of parliament. I just want to hear from you." I found that it really works well to talk to people about, what are their worries, what are their concerns, what keeps them awake at night, and that gives me a really clear sense of priority. You said you're from Ottawa, and Ottawa lives in a bit of an Ottawa bubble, and so sometimes the things that seem important here, I go home and I talk to people, and it's not as important. So it keeps me grounded in very much the issues that my community are living on and breathing every day. And so having those conversations on the doorstep is really, really important for me to keep me grounded. And there's things that have been pretty consistent. I'm the second youngest riding in British Columbia, and the first and third youngest ridings are my neighboring ones in Surrey Centre and Surrey Newton. And so it just shows that we have a lot of families, young families leaving high-cost Vancouver, moving out to the Fraser Valley. And so issues like affordability, having opportunities to raise kids, those types of things are very important. And so those are some of the things I like to focus on. I also hear on the doorsteps about things like, transit was the number two issue in my first term. And so we were able to get $1.3 billion to extend the SkyTrain station. First time it's been extended in my area since 1986, coming into the constituency of Cloverdale, Langley City. And so it can really help drive the work that I do as well on behalf of my constituents. So that's my favorite part of the job is being at home and hearing about the issues so I can bring those perspectives back to Ottawa.
So a bit on your work now, what has been your favorite achievement or some of your favorite achievements as an elected official, as an MP?
Well, here's one that a lot of people don't have the opportunity. There's private members bills where we get to create a piece of legislation. And so in the my first term in the 42nd Parliament, I had a private members bill related to implementing, I think it was Section 79.1 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action. And that was about adding Indigenous representatives to the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada. So that was tracking through the House. Senator Mobina Jaffer had a bill from the Senate that had passed there, and it was to strike the terms barbaric cultural practices from all federal legislation. And I was able to pick that up as a sponsor in the House of Commons. And on one of my birthdays, I can't remember exactly which one, but it was my birthday, both of those bills came up for a vote at the same time on my birthday and both passed the House of Commons. So that was a pretty important and exciting opportunity that, like I say, not many MPs have had. And my private members bill, interestingly, because it required new spending. I received a royal recommendation from the government, and I think it was only the second or third time that a royal recommendation had been given. So it was this really special day for me about work as a backbencher coming together through private member's bill, a piece of legislation on my birthday, and with the royal recommendation and passing. So that was probably a highlight.
So we're going to go on to the next segment now, which is called The World of Politics Around Us, where we'll talk a bit about this world of politics that surrounds us. So first off, who is or who was another politician or politicians that inspire you as an MP?
The only living leader that I'd ever met prior to getting into politics was Jean Chrétien. And I was always inspired by his wit, his humor, his passion, just his whole demeanor. And we did an event, what was it, 96, 97. I was with Parks Canada in the Yukon, and Chrétien, Prime Minister Chrétien at the time, came to Dawson City. And we did an opening of the commissioner's residence in the Yukon. And I got to meet him up close and personal and have a couple of minutes of conversation with him. Since then, since being elected, I've run into him a few times, and I just think he has so much wisdom, and I always admired his. I think he was the minister who had the greatest expansion of the national park system in the history of Canada. So he had some great accomplishments, and that was one that stuck out for me. And so he'd be the one I'd say that influenced me the most.
Well, the other evening, actually, I was at a bookstore and I found I had been meaning to buy his book for a while because I have like this expansive reading list, this massive reading list, but I decided to add to it and I found his book, so I got it.
Oh,
I
right
got it
on.
the other evening, so I'm looking forward to continue to reading it soon. But
Right. I have a feeling you won't be disappointed.
I'm looking forward to it. And finally now, the last question that I always like to end with is what do you think is an issue or some issues that you would like to see focused on more, that you would like to focus on more in the next little while?
Yeah, I think that something that's always been really important to me is the environment, and so I think our government has done a lot on climate change, but I think that there's more work to be done in order to limit some of the caps that we need, the continued warming of the planet. I think that we're at a point in time where we need to really step up in a meaningful way. Like I say, our government has done a lot, but the work isn't completed. And so I really want to see us continue to push on climate change. Along with that, I'm really concerned about things like loss of biodiversity, species at risk. All of those types of things are hugely concerning. And ultimately, I want us to have a healthy planet to leave to our kids and future generations. So I think that's where I'll continue focusing some of my efforts. This is something I'm very passionate about personally.
That's all for today. Thanks, John, so much for joining me.
Thanks for talking politics with me.
Well, it was so great to have you. And if you like this interview, make sure to go check out the other part here on YouTube for Top 10. If you're watching this at the day of the premiere, it's going to be coming out on Friday. So let's discuss politics as a VCalla production. Until the next video, I'm Vincenzo Calla, signing out.